What is good, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this, I want to break down what's going on with NIO, Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about some new updates involving the stocks and some other things that are going on so far. And what's going on with the markets, how this could also affect NIO going into next week. I'm also going to talk about why next week is once again going to be a massive week as we have deliveries coming out. And then shortly after that, we have NIO's earnings. We have the official date coming out. Before I break down all this information, before I get into any more details about why next week is going to be a big week for NIO, what you should be watching for, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market and NIO. NIO is once again down about 0.94% as of right now. Seeing how NIO has been dropping, it's looking a little bit weak. And I think that what's going to happen, though, is it's going to be very boring for an extended period of time. It's going to be very choppy as we have a lot of buyers defending $7 to 7.12. We also have some sellers trying to get it back down below the 200 EMA. So I think NIO is going to be range bound for a little bit longer, but starting by like the later end of next week, we have deliveries coming out. We also have some big data coming out that could affect it. So going into next week, I just want to call out that we're going to be looking at some GDP numbers coming out for, I believe it's Wednesday. And then for Thursday, we have PCE. And then Friday is going to be December 1st. We also have Jerome Powell giving a speech. But usually by Friday, right? When Friday comes out, we tend to see, with December 1st coming out being Friday, by this time we tend to see NIO announce its deliveries. So if NIO announces deliveries for November by then, which I think is very probable, we're going to see a big reaction most likely. So this could affect NIO to start off December. So that's what I'm anticipating for NIO. We have some big stuff coming out for next week. Not to mention Jerome Powell giving a speech again. So we'll be watching for all of that. And then on top of that, I just want to call out that a little bit after next week ends, we have this right here. Basically, if you look at NIO's earnings, NIO basically will be announcing its earnings most likely on December 5th. NIO is usually one of the later stocks to announce its earnings. So we're actually pretty close to that. That's just less than like 2 weeks away from now. So with that being said, it's going to be very important to watch this to see how NIO does. And this is going to cause a big move as well for the share price. Now, the news has been coming out that NIO has once again partnered with, this is Chang'an Auto for battery swapping, which is another good piece of news. This is a different company from the one we mentioned earlier. They signed an agreement on battery swapping, and they're going to come together to just formulate standards for swappable batteries, build and share the battery swapping network, develop swappable devices, and set up efficient battery asset management mechanisms. So good news for them. They're working very hard and continuing to improve. And we will see how this continues as time goes on. There's also some news about their improvements being made to their manufacturing process, and NIO is still trying to scale. But we're going to be watching to see how scalable this is, looking at their margins, what the plan is for improvement, and what their guidance is going to be. For NIO's earnings, okay, guidance is going to be key. Guidance is going to be everything, so make sure you watch guidance. As far as NIO goes, we have photos by the NIO phone, which look very cool. This is another potentially bullish catalyst. I'm very excited about this, and I think that this is going to lead to more upside. I'm still bullish on NIO, guys, for the long term. I don't think that this company is dead, so don't let all the fear mongering get the best of you. When it comes to volume, we had about 23 million, which is not bad whatsoever. On top of this, I just want to call out that Deutsche Bank is still giving a buy rating for NIO, despite the fact that the price-price ratio is still dropping. So my view of NIO is simple, guys. I think NIO is going to be very boring to start us off, and there's going to be some risk of it being a little red because of the market. So if you look at SPY, we have this rising wedge that has been developing on the chart. It's continuing to respect a rising wedge. And on top of that, you look at the 4-hour time frame on SPY, we are continuing to develop a quadruple bearish divergence. Typically, this leads to downside. As of right now, there's no sign of this, but we're going to be watching this to see if we finally get that move, maybe going into next week. So there's a risk of downside. We're not bearish just yet. Okay, that does not mean we have to crash. We might see this thing try to pop a little higher, but we're going to be watching resistance where the July high was around 457. That's July of 2023. If we reject from there, we could see like another pullback. So you want to be very careful. And I want there to be a very healthy pullback before we get the last December rally to end the year strong. I think that that's very probable. And I think that this chart is technically speaking, looking like there's going to be a pullback coming, and that could affect NIO. Tesla might outperform the market a bit because we have this imbalance that's once again going to push Tesla back up. I think that Tesla looks like it's going to try to break out. If anything, I think it's looking relatively better than before. We might start off kind of choppy between 232 and 235, back and forth for a little longer. Then eventually we might get a breakout. I think that this could happen approaching the Cybertruck events because the Cybertruck event is going to be on Thursday. And I think that approaching Thursday, we might see some upside for Tesla. And then we're going to be watching to see what happens after Thursday. So we still want to be very careful, but Tesla might make some decent moves. For Aapl, we managed to close just below 190 and starting to look a little bit weak. We had a quadruple bearish divergence on the chart. The RSI is turning more bearish, and Apple looks like it's going to test 188. If we lose this, we're going to turn more bearish. I think it might pop a bit, then start dropping. So it's looking a bit more bearish. On the QQQ, we happen to have a triple, if not a quadruple, more of a triple bearish divergence. If this thing ends up losing 384, watch for even more downside all the way back down to these lower levels. It's going to be very important to watch that. On Nvda, this is also looking a little bit more bearish. I could see this thing dropping a bit more. We're going to be watching 476 as support. If we lose that, the next level is going to be 470. I could see it coming back down towards like this 476 area. Technically speaking, it still looks a bit more bearish, but we're not necessarily dead just yet. I think that what could happen is it could drop a little bit more, get very close to 470. We might see some buyers defend it, and we might see this thing bounce and just trade a little sideways for some time. But once again, the overall chart is looking a bit more bearish, at least for the short term. For the long term, I'm still very bullish on Nvidia. So I don't want to change my opinion on that. I'm a big bull on Nvidia for the long term. Short term, there could still be a little bit more downside coming. The VIX, in my opinion, it's very, very oversold. It's at the lowest level we've seen. And I think this is the lowest we've seen in all this year in 52 weeks. The VIX is at a very low level, but there's a bullish divergence forming on the MACD, not on the RSI anymore. So we'll be watching to see where this thing finally bases. Typically, the VIX should not drop this hard without getting some kind of bounce. So I'm going to be anticipating some kind of bounce soon, and maybe the market's going to help that become a reality. So what do I see for NIO? I anticipate that NIO might just trade sideways. It's going to be very boring for the next couple of days. It might retrace towards like 7.14, bounce back up to 7.56, just trade sideways between this range. And then I'm anticipating that NIO is going to bounce. We're going to get a nice bounce soon. At least approaching deliveries towards the later end of the week. And then we're going to be watching to see how deliveries affected and earnings over the next 2 weeks. And I think that this can still make a big move to the upside or even the downside. But for now, I think that we're going to try to base at $7. We're going to see it retest 7, bounce, go back and forth and back and forth. It's going to be very boring, but things will get much more exciting by Wednesday/Thursday, when NIO gets closer to its deliveries. Then by Friday, there's going to be a big move coming, and then going into early next week, we have earnings, and that's when an even bigger move is going to be coming. So we'll be watching this all very carefully. We'll see how NIO does with earnings. And with that being said, because of how the market's performing, we might just see some boring sideways price action. But don't let that get the best of you guys. Just remain calm, cool, and collected, and remember to do what's best for your own portfolios. All right. So thank you for listening. Have a great day. I'll see you guys in the next one. NIO to the moon, because the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.